Welcome to this week's deep dive video. We have Jacob Long back with us, and we are going to continue in our series, Discipled. And this past week, we talked about sending them out, the importance of once you have discipled someone, once they have a great understanding of their faith, it is extremely important to send them out. Jacob, what do you think about that?
I would totally agree. It's important to send them out. We find that example. Christ in Luke 10 of him sending out disciples into the harvest. And he even says, start by praying for it. And so praying for opportunities and then going out for them, sending your disciples out, praying for more laborers, and then sending out disciples. This is definitely something that we're encouraged to do. And we see that example followed in Jesus as well.
Yeah.
It's all about multiplication. And so that's how we reach that multiplication.
I love it. And I know for me personally, it is not a natural thing for me to get amped up to go share my faith. I see the importance of it. And I'm excited when I'm in the middle of doing it. But that getting going is often hard. What do you think is the best way, or is there a best way to encourage our disciples to get over that initial hump?
I might have shared this before, but one thing I really like is John 14, where he just says, if you love me, you obey my commands. So we have a command that Jesus says, in Matthew 28, Jesus talks about going out, going and sharing, making disciples. So there's a command for us as disciples to go. And then in John 14, it says, if you love me, you obey my commands. And so, there's kind of a correlation there that says, okay, I'm going to love Christ, I'm going to obey. And what's really cool is right after that, in 23, I believe, 14:23, he says, then I'll send my spirit, the Holy Spirit, who will teach and remind. And so God just saying that if you obey, I'll come through for you. I'll teach you what you need to know. I'll remind you of the scriptures you want to know in those times. And so, but it starts by obeying. Have that faith, and then I'll come through for you.
I love it. That's so encouraging. It reminds me, I think we did talk about this the first week with Peter and John before the Sanhedrin, how God gave them the words and they were blown away, these uneducated men. And what a comforting thing to have. I think too, one of the things that's been encouraging for me is when I've been able to see someone else do it. You see someone else actually living it out, and you're like, oh, that's how that works. That's what that is. It's you don't have to ambush people with a Bible tract. You can build a relationship with them, that kind of thing. So
we see in 2 Timothy 2:2 that we even see Paul follow that example of multiple disciples like happening, where he's obviously writing to Timothy, and he says, take what I've given to you and pass it to reliable people. So this would be people Timothy would know are reliable, that would be willing to go and obey. And then he continues on into 2, and then let them take it to others. And so we have a generational thing where Paul's passing it to his disciple Timothy, who he encourages to pass it to his disciple of reliable people, who then Timothy should encourage them to pass it on to others. And so we have a pretty cool track right there.
Yeah. I used this illustration Sunday. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I definitely think it was, I probably heard it somewhere. God reminded me of it, is probably what happened. But, the champagne towers, where you start out with the one on top and the bottle keeps pouring as it cascades down. And I've just mentioned how tragic it is if you take one of those glasses out of there, the potentially hundreds that wouldn't be filled up, that wouldn't adhere. If one of us stops doing our part, the cascading effect of those who won't hear is incredible. And the reverse of that, what a beautiful thing when we do our part. How many more will hear because we shared with the few that God put in our life.
Yeah. One other stat I heard actually this weekend, I heard it before, but a friend of mine was talking, and he said, if a single believer, it started with one believer. So we know that Jesus lived roughly about 33 years, in that general age. And so if one believer made one disciple a year, and he taught them to obey just once a year, okay, so in year 2, there would be 2 disciples. then you teach the disciples to go, and multiplication happens that way, right?
Yeah.
Every year you grab one disciple, you teach your disciple to grab one disciple every year. In 33 years, so in the lifespan of Christ, it would reach 8 billion people. So that would be the entire world. So
Holy
the way
cow.
that multiplies out, if one person was to start today, one disciple per year, and teaching them to do the exact same thing, by that multiplication, in 33 years, it'll be the entire population of the earth. So
That's incredible.
It's crazy how quick multiplication happens when we just obey and teach people to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I could be a little bit of a pessimist. Sometimes I'm like, Jacob, come on, that's ridiculous. But Jesus starts out in Luke 10, as you mentioned earlier, with the vision casting, the exciting thing. The harvest is ready. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few, and I think we give up before we even get started sometimes. And that's the reason there's not very many. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob. Thank you for diving in, going a little deeper with us on the importance of sending out our disciples.
Yeah, perfect. It's awesome being here.